Hello, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my amazing interviews. I don't know if you are a bit like me. You go around, you see things and you think, wow, that's a bit weird. Those numbers have just appeared more than once in the last couple of hours or something. Or certain synchronicities. I saw a number plate the other day, C19VAX, which was a bit strange because didn't 3 years ago we have something that might have referenced that, and then we had a thing that we had stuck into our arm, and I thought, who's got a number plate with C19VAX? Well, this may actually be a thing. I appeared on a very nice gentleman's podcast only the other day. His name is Tom Numbers, and numbers is his speciality. And I've written down what he does. He has his own podcast. He'll tell you about that in a second. Simple Gematria. Have you ever heard of such a thing? We're going to find out on today's show. Tom, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you on board. Thanks, Richard. Thanks for having me. It's great to see you again. It's good to be on the show. Thanks for coming on mine the other day. Yeah. I was going to say, I'm repaying the favour. It's nice to actually be interviewed by somebody else when you run a show, because you haven't got to think of all the questions. You just got to answer them, which is nice and easy. Yeah. So I'm doing the same to you now. Gematria. This is like a language of numbers that randomly or not so appear. Is that right?
Yes, that's it. That's what it is, Richard. It's called simple. Well, you can call it Gematria, simple Gematria, or simple English Gematria. They're all the same thing. The simple Gematria is simply put, it's the alphanumeric order of the alphabet. So, for example, A is the first letter of the alphabet, so equals 1. B equals 2. C equals 3. All the way through to Z, the 26th letter.
26. I can work that one out.
There you go, 26. And so what you do is you add up the value of the numerical value of names, places, sentences, songs, music, sport, chemistry, anything, because we're always talking in language, we're always speaking out words, but those words have a numerical context. And what I've found in the last 3.5 years since the beginning of 2020, well, the spring of 2020, when the world changed with lockdowns, etc., I had at the same time, I wanted to know what the hell was going on. I've always been open and awake to things, but I wanted to know what was going on. So I started to, because it was the big one, we've never gone through that before. But at the same time, it was almost like an equal positive force pushing me into a certain direction, which was thoughts, inspiration, inspiration and thoughts were coming into my mind. And very quickly I discovered that this alphanumeric language existed, and I was noticing it in places when I was researching. I started with something prompted me to look up Princess Diana, and we've just had her celebration of her, passing and her funeral just in the last week and a half, and something prompted me to look up her funeral service. The other thing as well, I've said this to you before, I'll preface it with this: when Boris went into number 11, went upstairs, was in the naughty room, had to sit in there for however long. He said something
when he was ill, when he was supposedly ill.
Yeah, that's it. When he was supposedly ill, and he's up there, and they all got ill, didn't they? But he was one of them, He said something that it stood out to me, and he said the key to the coronavirus puzzle is to stay indoors. And I was like, okay, he's just told us that it's a puzzle, and if it's a puzzle, you can work it out. And so you can either stay indoors and watch TV, or you can research. And so you could be online, or you can try and actively try and figure out what the heck's going on. So that's what I was doing. I was doing it intuitively anyway, but when he said that, it kind of got my radar, my spidey sense. Yeah, my bat wings went up, and I was like, okay.
It's interesting you say that. Do you think that politicians, people of authority, do you think they speak incredibly carefully so that, what appears to be a flippant remark like the key to the puzzle is this,
yes,
is actually well thought out beforehand, or is it that it's a slip of the tongue that actually they don't know they've let out, but it sounds pretty, nobody would normally pick up on it unless they're a bit like you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a bit of both. I think there are ones that know this language. I also think there's people. I was talking to my friend Rachel, Right Side Blonde in America. I do shows with her, and she said something which was a slip of a tongue, and I said, and I worked out the numbers on it, and it was significant for what we've been talking about. But I've had it on shows. I'll misspeak. Other people will misspeak. And when I hear a misspeak, I pay attention to it. I pick up what the misspeak is, what it should have been, and then what they are added together. And I just kind of instinctively did that, and I always find there's code with it. And so, to answer your question, I think it's a blend. I think it's a bit of all of it. I think there are people that know how to do it. I also think there are greater forces working through bad actors and good actors, and good people and bad people. And the codes are everywhere. It's almost like the universe, in my opinion, is this living, breathing thing. And the numbers are one way that people can notice that. You can get synchronicities, all the time if you're open to it. And I had them before 2020, but nowhere near to the frequency of it. Now it's, hundreds of times a day. I'm getting inspiration. I'm getting thoughts that come in. I'm getting feedback. I'll think something and then I see it. I've had it with you since we've done our show. I've seen a couple of vans. One was Richard Thomas, and I texted it to you. And then a day or two later, there was another one that was Richard's son, and son in numbers is 48, which is Tom. And I was like, that's another similar one. So there was Richard Thomas and Richardson, and I knew what they both were. But on the second one, I was doing an edit on the video you and me did a week or so ago. And I was doing it, and this one went past because I was actually on the bus just working something out and doing an edit. And then it went Richard Son, and that's why I mentioned it to you. I was like,
You did. So do you think that's, is it a bit like if you buy yourself a new car and it's yellow or red or it's a certain make, that because you haven't had that colour or that make before, you suddenly start noticing, I thought I was the only one in a black transit van. Turns out there's loads of them.
Yeah.
Because you start to see them. And in a way, you're because you're aware of certain numbers that mean certain things, you pick up on it very quickly.
Yes. Yeah. So there's that as well. There's they call that the reticular activating system, RAS. And so, when you focus on something, because we're bombarded with so many pieces of information. We're told we can only, maybe it's not the case, but traditionally we can only focus on a certain narrow bandwidth. And so if we're in that bandwidth, we do start to notice it. We start to notice the things that are familiar with us. And you're right, I have a bandwidth of trying to figure out what's going on. And I do have these recurring numbers, but I have hundreds and thousands of reference points and numbers that I know. And I do have a certain focus. But I see it coming in continually all the time. And that's the thing. And then when I see it in the newspaper or the front of the newspaper, I had a thing of Darth Vader a few months ago, and I'll quite often pull up my phone and show, someone a newspaper headline. I'll do the decode. Anyway, the Star newspaper, which I think is a conduit for this stuff, it's an accelerated version of these synchronicities. They then put a picture of Darth Vader holding a mobile phone up to the front page. I was like, Darth Vader doesn't have a mobile phone last time I checked on, So it's those sorts of things, that happen a lot. It's more than just, I've noticed the yellow car, Yellow, interesting, is 92 numbers, and red is 27 code, JFK, So there's there's definitely that aspect of the RAS, but I think I feel, because I've been immersed in it so long, I feel it's a higher level of consciousness distilling upon us. Yeah.
Right. So, I'm going to play a little bit on the devil's advocate, because I can imagine that some members of the audience will go, this sounds all very interesting, but is it not just coincidence that you happen to see something that, by coincidence, if you add up the certain numbers of a name, makes something, and so therefore it stands out, whereas the myriad of other things, of other cars that pass the window that don't, they don't get picked up on?
Yeah, so people can think that. I think the biggest key to, because people have said to me, well, I can get the numbers, I can work them out, but I don't know how you get the meanings. And so I think what it is a combination of people's intention and their purity of heart, really, in terms of this stuff that we're talking about. Because let's face it, you've quite humbly and enthusiastically and refreshingly said you're one of the new ones to the party, but you're actively involved in it, and you're now seeing the kind of the knocks that you can get with it and the pushing around. So it's not for everybody. It takes a certain level of bravery, and I would say purity of heart. Really, I think if people if they're connected to where I believe this is coming from, they'll receive it and they'll understand it. Because I get people that watch the show and they're like, I don't even understand the numbers. I don't even understand what but I love the feeling I get from watching this. And then you get the kind of critics that will be like, okay. But I would say to the critics, if you do Gematria for 3 months and then come back to me with the same question, they won't have that question. But I've never had anyone take that challenge, because I know what they're trying to do is, when I hear, I've heard it hundreds of times, but you can just do this and make anything mean anything. It's like, actually you can't. What you can do is you can make, you'll know that there's thousands, it's probably, 30,000+ English words, maybe more. And then there's, however many numbers, I've got numbers up into the 400s and beyond.
And what do you mean by that? You've got numbers up to 4,000 beyond. What do you mean?
So
you've got words that you've got. You know the numbers of certain words instantly.
Yes.
As a vocabulary.
Yeah. So it's not just like one, because a lot of numerology is like between 1 and 9. They reduce them down. Whereas simple gematria, you keep it open. So it actually gives you more context. It gives you more variety. It gives you more numbers. And so if someone was to say to me, because I've had those comments before, either from trolls or bots, or from people just not really getting it or just trying to poo-poo it, and they say, oh, well, you can make anything into anything. The truth of the matter is you can't. You can't make anything into anything. What you can do is you can have hundreds, thousands of words that will be the same value as other ones, but then there's a whole plethora of all these other values of words that aren't going to be, for example, number 88. 88 comes to Trump, it comes to purple, it comes to Scotland. Back to the Future, you have to travel 88 miles per hour. It's a significant number. It's that double wealth resurrection number. The Chinese use the single 8. You've got the casinos that do the 888, the 888. But if I was to say to you, okay, or if a critic said to me, okay, we'll make chair into 88, you can't. Right. Chair doesn't come to 88. But there will be a lot of 88s. But then there's, for all the 88s, there's all the other numbers that those values of those words aren't going to hit on 88. Certain ones will, but then the majority of them won't, because they're going to be assigned to their own value. And so when people say you can make anything, you can't. You technically can't.
So does 88 in itself have a certain resonance?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. I think it's, well, why do this might be a question for others or for the brands. It's like, I know the Chinese use the number 8 because it's a wealth, it's a spiritual number, it's a wealth number.
It's like an infinity shape as well, isn't it?
An infinity one, yeah.
Like the scale-electric.
That's it, like a scale-electric loop, yeah. And therefore, if you have 2 of them, 88 is a really potent, powerful number. 77 is a powerful number. 77 comes to the word Christ.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Gematria, the word Gematria comes to 74. It comes to English. So that's the language that we're speaking in. It comes to the word Jesus. It comes to the word Messiah for the Jews. It comes to the word Muhammad for the Muslims. It comes to, or Islam, it comes to, 74 comes to tarot. So people in the esoteric world, I do lots of shows with Janine, and it's like, there's all these, that's the thing I see, there's all these other connections that are not obvious from what we've been told, but when you pit, Gematria is a bit like a spiritual periscope. It helps you see around corners and connect dots. One thing you talked about, this hidden language at the beginning when we spoke. So if you do A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, all the way through to to Z, 26. 26 is God. 26 is game, interesting enough. So you can, game, yeah. So people think we're in this simulation game. I tend to think that that's probably what we're in. But God is also 26. But if you add A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, all the way up, all the way through, it comes to a number which is 351. 351 comes to the sentence, God communicates through numbers. 351. Jesus Christ is the English alphabet, 351. There's a whole bunch of them. There's about 20 plus similar phrases that emphasize that God is or the universe is communicating through these numbers.
Does it take you a long time to sort of piece that, so a sentence that can do that? I mean, you're obviously very experienced.
Yeah, not for me, it doesn't. I mean, the biggest, so this is what happened, Richard. So I would say to people, the best way to learn it is, I think it is the intention. If you have a pure desire, you'll be, I think Gematria and the numbers are looking to land and distill upon as many people as possible, because it helps the awakening process happen. The way to do it is have that intention, even just a desire, a willingness to do it. And then I would suggest, don't go looking for numbers. What you do is any thought, any inspiration, anything that stands out to you, work that out, write it down, work it out. And I was getting the numbers at a rapid pace at the beginning of lockdown, but I still had to learn A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. I had to do that. It took me about 10 days to maybe 3 weeks to master it. When I did that...
So you could address any letter and go, V
instantly.
is whatever.
Yes. Yeah, because I was, in the beginning, I knew this stuff was coming and I knew it was talking, but the blockage, the block in the pipe was converting it. The bandwidth limitation was A is 1, B is 2. I had to write it down, or I had to count it on my fingers. So if people do this, Tom Numbers, I had to do that as well. In the beginning, I had to count it out on my fingers. So my point of saying that is that's what I had to do. But if people persist with it, it's so worthwhile, because it's like a key to another language. And then once you can do that, you'll find that you'll get so much in terms of a stream of consciousness, a stream of information coming to you, and then you'll be able to recognize it. And that's what happened. No one actually told me. I didn't even know what the name Gematria was. I only discovered that about maybe 2 or 3, 4 months in. I thought it was numerology, and it is a form of numerology, but the correct terminology is Gematria. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even know what Q posts were, but I discovered that 17 and Q were really important in this Great Awakening. Then retrospectively after I came along the Q post. So everything was coming, and I was following my kind of nose, and I was just going with it, and I was being guided. Look at this, Diana's funeral. Oh, that was the thing I was going to say. So Diana's funeral happened at 9:08 in the morning. That's when it started, which is a weird time to start something official. 9 o'clock, 9:30, 9:15, but it's not. It's 9:08, and the reason for that is 9 plus 8 comes to 17, which comes to Q. Q is the 17th letter. At this time, I didn't know what Q was. I didn't know what number 17 was, but this consciousness was guiding me. Interestingly enough, consciousness is 175, which comes to Diana Frances Spencer. So I feel that somehow her essence, something representing her, was guiding me and pointing me to this. And then I realized that Trump was misspeaking every night when he was taking on Fauci and all the rest of them. And he was deliberately misspeaking, deliberately mistweeting. And I was working out the errors, and I was getting codes constantly. And then I went and found that where JFK was buried, Arlington Cemetery, if you look at the aerial views, this huge Q. And I was like, hang on, there's a Q on Diana, there's a Q on Kennedy. They both die in strange circumstances. And then you've got Trump taking on the world. And then I saw this video, and I think they put it up there for me, where JFK Jr. was in New York, and Diana went to meet him. There's only a 2-minute clip. And they talk about the possibility of meeting in Trump Tower. I think they met in another one as well, but they definitely met in Trump Tower as well, because they put it in the public feed. And they said, oh, actually, we maybe meet at Trump Tower. No, we're going to meet at this other place. That's classic misdirection, but they're telling you in plain sight what happened. And I was like, hang on. We're in the biggest thing of all of our lives. Something's telling me to look up Diana's burial. I figure out that there's a Q there. I look at JFK. I thought it was JFK Jr. at the time, the Arlington Cemetery, but it was his dad. And then Trump taking on the world every night. Boris has told us there's a key to the coronavirus puzzle, and that's what happened. That was the process. That's what happened. That's how it went. And I just kept. It was literally like a PhD in probably 3 PhDs of numbers within the space of 3 or 4 weeks, really. Even though I'm counting out on my fingers.
Yeah. So let's take a step back there, because there's a lot, I think, for people who are completely new to this to fully grasp, and I don't want them. Oh, the lovely Julia has just brought in a nice cup of tea. Thank you very much.
There you go.
You see, there we are. Thank you. So some people may just be like, wow, this is fascinating, interesting, and I'm just trying to get my head around it, as indeed I am. So just tell us, you say you're getting this inspiration down. How does that manifest to you, first of all?
It really comes in as thoughts, as a thought. Did you see that when I said thought? The camera moved, like the screen moved. So that was the other thing. In my early times, I'd get orbs appearing in my videos as well. I'd get beams of light whizzing behind my head when I'd be talking about this stuff. So the feeling is, Richard, when you get when you go out in nature, you go for a walk and you get clarity, you clear the air, you clear the cobwebs, and you get clarity of thought. And sometimes you're like, well, that's jolly good. So we're receptors for this thought process, for this consciousness, plugging into the infinite intelligence. And the feeling I get is just pure thoughts that come in. I'm always excited every day because I have a few plans, but I don't know necessarily what's going to happen, and I follow my nose, and I always end up finding, pieces of gold, really. And so that's what it is. It's thought. And the other, some would call it a download.
Right. You see, that's the thing. I've heard this term, and what I try to work out in my head is, how do you differentiate that from your, let's say, your ordinary everyday thoughts, where I must put the washing on, or go and get some food, what shall I do for a video today, and to those that pop into your head and you go, oh, that's a good idea. Is that the one would call it inspiration, I suppose, but is that coming from above? And if not, what is?
Yeah, well, I believe so. It's really, the word download is 88 as well. So if you spell the word download, it's 88. Right. So it's in that vicinity,
Yes.
Talk about the quantum realm. People are more open to that thing of quantum.
Yeah.
And Aquarius, the age of Aquarius, people are saying we're going into that age of Aquarius. They're familiar terms. So Aquarius is 107 in numbers. Quantum is 107 in numbers. Eternal life is 107 in numbers.
Would you add the 107? Would you 101 and make 8? You
can. That's more in the terms of reduction of numerology. Right. So people like to reduce the numbers. So that's probably the method that people are more used to. And it's totally fine to do it. I never get hit up on, you must do it this way or this way.
Right.
But I like to keep them open, which you do in simple gematria, just because I find it gives me more options, more variety, more context. But by all means, if you want to reduce it down, you definitely can do, for sure. And there you go. If you do 1 plus the 7, as you pointed out, you get the 8, you get the infinite again. So you can see how 8 is connected to quantum, because that's 107. If you drop a 0, it's 1717 Q. So there's all those connections and all the familiarities. But the feeling, it becomes obvious. It's like when something just stands out to you, something stands out to you. And you know what? It doesn't matter, even if it is something like your shopping, you can get the numbers through that. I get numbers in everything. But there are definitely things that do stand out to me.
Yes. And I guess if you've done it for a while, it becomes more obvious that it's standing out, and it's, because I think a lot of thought is noise, isn't it? And your brain is constantly thinking things, unless you meditate or something and really focus on either trying to stop it or step back from your thoughts, like in the Power of Now, which is a book I've recently read.
Eckhart Tolle, yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm personally trying to to work out what bits are actual downloads and what bits are just the noise of everyday thought. And I'm guessing the more you do it, the more obvious it is.
Yes, and I would also say as well, once you kind of fall in love with that own process, like I hear exactly what you're saying, but I would say when I'm doing my stuff, I don't really consider my thoughts really as chatter, to be fair. And maybe that's just through practice and just the kind of way, because I guess I'm quite selective on it. So this is a really interesting concept, actually. Thought, conception is everything's an idea. But I tend to, I guess, be pretty specific on the way I think and what I do, and I don't really dwell on things or I try not to, that is chatter, because I find it kind of irritating and drains your energy. So I mean, I'm human, so there's things I have to deal with in my life, but I try to get those things done and be dealt with. But I don't really kind of go through just kind of mindless chatter.
Do you find yourself wondering? I mean, this is quite interesting, and we're sort of veering away, but it's quite fascinating.
Yeah,
I find myself, something might inspire. Well, I say inspire. I might see something. If I'm walking into the town, just on a walk, or into the countryside, and you might see, I don't know, a squirrel climb a tree or something, and then my mind, not purposefully, but not subconsciously, because I'm consciously doing it, going, oh, I wonder where he lives. Does he live in that tree, or has he got a mate? And it's sort of not daydreaming, but I'm just allowing a thought process to evolve.
Yes. And I would say go with that. I'd say fall in love with your thoughts. I enjoy it. It's like we're going through our own kaleidoscope of imagination and creation at the same time.
Yeah, I like that's a very good way of putting it. Yeah, kaleidoscope of thoughts.
Yeah, that's what it is, and I think we should embrace that. And I think that's where the magic is. It's like I think I've said to you, I've had, I get this a lot, but the other day I was doing, I was working out some numbers, and there was a film with Anthony Hopkins, and I can't remember what the name of the film was, but he was in it. No, not Anthony Hopkins, sorry. Who's the guy from Clockwork Orange?
That's a good question. I can't.
The main character. I think I've met him at a film before. I forgot his name. I can see his name now. The English guy.
And I can't help you. I can't bring the actor. I haven't seen it.
McDowell. Is it Ian McDowell? Malcolm McDowell.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's in this film. It's a kind of B film. It's not like, it was kind of almost like a made for TV, but it was actually really good. I don't remember the name of it because it talked about a lot of this quantum stuff. Anyway, I've got this film on, but I'm also working out some numbers at the same time. And I've worked out some numbers, and it's come to 174, which comes to the quantum leap. And I know that phrase. It comes to real Donald Trump. It comes to currency exchange. It comes to the quantum leap. Anyway, a second and a half later, Malcolm McDowell in this film says the quantum leap.
I see.
Yeah. And so, but that sort of thing happens a lot. My brother gets it a lot. We always call it the game, which is 26, which is God. There's that film, The Game. And they actually, that Michael Douglas film, I don't know if you're familiar with it, Richard, but Michael Douglas is in it with Sean Penn, and basically it's showing him that his reality is this kind of game. It's a symbiotic loop where he thinks and feels something, but then if he's kind of at that level, something will feed back to him, or maybe vice versa. He'll pick up on the feedback, then and this is what the game, that film, shows, and I get that a lot. I'll get it. People have probably had it, like say, for example, a loved one, you're thinking about them and you get a text from them or a call or something. And I had this prior to 2020, but they were rare. They were like real kind of rubies, Now it happened, and they're still with it. I don't poo-poo them. I still welcome them. They always make me smile, but I get them consistently. you know, all the time now. And that's when it's a real zinger. It's like, okay, there's something much more than just coincidences and noticing. It's like, how am I thinking a thought, working something out, doing numbers, and then the guy in the box says it, you know?
Yeah.
Gary Lineker, I've had it with the football. Gary Lineker did it a few weeks ago or something, and then another pundit, Danny Murphy, said something. And I was like, okay. Yeah. Oh, that was it. So there was, what's his name? The manager, he's at Wolves now, but he was Gary O'Neill. He was doing the football commentary, and they had an advert, one of the billboards, and it said kick. And I was looking at kick. I was like, oh, what's the numbers on kick? I've forgotten it. Anyway, I worked it out. And then lo and behold, he says the word kick. So there's him speaking it. I've seen it on the billboard, and then I worked it out. And it's like, it's just, so things like that happen a lot, you know.
Right. So, I mean,
like with you, when I'm doing the editing on the bus,
and that comes
and Thomas's show, and then Richardson comes up, and a few days before that, it was Richard Thomas, and I'm like, okay. And I always smile, but it's like the reality is morphing into us, you know.
Yes. So here's a deep question then: Is reality? Because we keep well, I don't say we keep. I keep hearing how we're in a game, we're in some sort of video game, or that reality is being created on the fly. We're creating the reality we see, and our thoughts matter, and all of that. So, is the reality then of the guy saying kick, or the other words that come up, Gary Lineker saying what he says, or whatever it is that being generated, if you like, for you individually? I mean, the fact other people would see it but they wouldn't notice it because they haven't picked up on it, but in your game, in your sort of world, is that being generated, and is that a message then to say this is actually how things work, pay attention?
I think it is, I do. So did you see that the screen just zoomed in and out?
It has been doing that. It's your autofocus on the laptop.
Yeah, but it's doing it when we're saying key things.
Right.
So sometimes I'll get a flicker on a screen, or I'll get an orb. But I think it is. I think you summed it up really well.
And we all have that. We're all having these. So me seeing C19 VAX for whatever reason, was a message to me.
Yeah.
Because I showed Julia, who happened to see it, but I saw it first, as it were, and pointed it out. And it
was for you,
and it was for me.
Yes, that's it.
And probably no one else would have seen it or paid attention. Clearly not, because the car was still on the road and it looked pristine. And if it had been in some, been on the road and everybody saw it, I'm sure a number of people would have smashed the window. It's just the audacity of driving a vehicle with that number plate. If you're watching, by the way, and you do have that number plate, there's no intention to slur you in any shape or form. It's very unusual.
But the universe does. It speaks to you. It gives you your own Easter eggs, for want of a better phrase. You know, it does it. It winks at you. It's like, hello, hi Richard, I'm here. And then the next part is like, because I'm in that process of receiving them, and I love them all the time. And then I'm like, okay, how do we go? You know,
what do you use? How do you? Yeah, exactly. No, go on.
I was just saying, it's like, so where do we take it from there? You know, and I think the reason that this is the case, and we're being shown these things, is because it's almost like it wants to. I say it loosely, but it wants to communicate. It wants to show us the nature of reality. I was out for a swim in the ocean this evening before the show, and I was thinking, and I think about this stuff all the time, you know, as you probably gathered, but I was like, I think as time goes on, we're just going to be shown more and more the nature of reality, and it's not what we thought. You know, it's not what we thought. It's like that's what the quantum, it's what the double split experiment shows. You know, if you observe it as a particle, you see it as a part. If you observe it as a wave, it's a wave, and they're both at the same time. And how can that be? And then it's like, okay, so is everything in our mind? Is everything just because? With the greatest respect in the world, I only know my reality, and I think I'm real.
Yeah,
but maybe
I'm
not.
Be a complete myth.
Yeah, it might be a myth, and it might be. I mean, the whole concept of dream. That's exact. So today's 9/11, for example.
Yes.
9/11. If you say 9/11 in numbers, it's 105. 9 is 42. 11 is 63. JFK passed away in 63. You were born in 63. Friday, with JFK, Friday is 63. So you've got that going on. But then you do 9/11, 42 plus 63, it comes to 105. 105 comes to the word inception. And that great film from Christopher Nolan talking about dreams within dreams within dreams within dreams. And then that does make you ask the question, what are we in? Are we in a dream? Dream is 41. King is 41. Aliens 41. USA is 41. Good is 41. ET was an alien. He's like, good, be good. Phone home. Home is 41. Alien. My initials, TSB, is 41. It's like, well, what are they trying to tell? What is reality trying to show to us? Are we in this? Are we in a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream? I did the show with Pat Cash, and he loves that movie because he feels this is what this is showing us, you know? And it's like, and that's when it becomes really exciting. And then, you know, with all the kind of fear and nonsense going on, I really don't pay any attention to it because I'm just like, it's all just.
I was just going to ask you about fear then, because I was absolutely, yeah. So
there's this little thing in the corner, you know, just yapping away for attention. It's like a little chihuahua. It's like, okay, yeah,
right, yeah, because people are very easily moved to fear because they think of imminent danger.
Yeah.
But if in a dream you sort of lose that sense of fear, because even though you may be in your dream strapped to the rails and the train is coming towards you, there's something in there to say either I shall escape or it's just a dream. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And although you might feel some of the emotions, and so then you think, or then I think now, you saying that, when the people who want you to be frightened, the reason they want you to be frightened is so that you don't realise that actually we're not as mortal as we appear to be, that we are perhaps in all sorts of different dimensions at various different times and within dreams and dreams. This is quite fascinating. So then you suddenly realise, actually, we're free. And they are an insignificant part of the story, because once you realise there's nothing to be frightened of, they'll disappear in a puff of smoke.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head, Richard. That's exactly what it is. If we were imagine if we were able to live with no fear at all, just complete excitement, wonderment for everything, and just that, it would just totally disappear. And I think that's why it's getting more and more absurd.
So do you think
it's pushing people into that point of that's nonsense, and then they own it for themselves, and there's still others that are in that, but I think they'll pop out of it, you know.
So here's the thing, I don't know how old you are, but in your life,
48 in numbers is Tom. 48.
Tom,
so
48. There you go. I'm talking to Tom at 48. And in your life, you've probably had some hardship. Of some description. I mean, I lost an eye. I had to deal with my dad who had dementia. Nearly lost my son who had a brain hemorrhage. My mum was an alcoholic. So there's some big major things in my life that I've had to deal with full on. But it's that contrast thing, isn't it? If you haven't suffered something, whatever it is, you can't appreciate the good things. If you know, so in a way, what I'm reading from what you've been saying to me in this whole conversation is that with that fear thing, if your life has been in a bit of fear, and then you realise actually it's nothing to worry about, and life is great, you really appreciate it. But if life is if you fall on your feet all the time, if you're born with a silver spoon and everything just happens to you, and you have nothing to contrast wonderful times, it must be very dull.
Yes, I hear that, and I do. I hear that.
So what I mean is, I suppose as humans, we have hardship, whatever it is. But as we perhaps go into different dimensions, this ascension or whatever, we've done that, and we can appreciate then that actually what being free really means, maybe.
Yes, yeah. I mean, President Trump's spoken about we needed these 4 years to show people, So I think it's been orchestrated at some level, and that's what I believe, to show people, and I hear the contrast. But I guess me personally now, I'm ready for the glory. I'm ready for the great.
Well, no,
I'm ready for the wonderful times of just amazing, the 1,000 years of peace and happiness. That's what I'm ready for. But I do. Because I was asking 107 that yesterday, a couple of days ago, about what's the point of it? Is it contrast? Is that why we're here? And I think there's a number of answers to it, but maybe it's all individual. But I do think about that, and I see the thing of you need to. Yeah, I mean, allegorically, biblically, it's like if you don't know the bitter, you can't know the sweet. So I totally get that. But I think because we've been in this time of,
and we're destroying the planet, and it's time to stop.
It's like we're ready now we've got that down. We understand the contrast. We're ready for the real good stuff.
Absolutely. But it's something that we've had to go through to get to, to get to that. Like,
and that might be part as well, because I've thought about this question a lot, and I've thought. So I've always been naturally positive and optimistic. Positive is 115 actually, which is 11/5, November 5th next year. But
you mentioned that before. November 5th. It's obviously a date that's got some significance.
Well, it's the election next year, but I think it's far bigger than that. So we'll just see, But I think if people want some faith and reassurance and kind of, a timeline to kind of pace themselves on, I think, just watch the election. There's a reason that day is picked. There's a reason we're told in definitely in English folklore and history. Remember the 5th of November. There's a reason. That's the only day we're actually told to remember in all of, there's all these significant days, but that's the only one we're told to remember.
Yes. It's funny how we don't really pay much attention to language. But as soon as you say that, this is what I find so fascinating, because we don't pay attention enough to the words. The key to the puzzle is so it's a puzzle. Remember. And they say it twice, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Remember.
They do.
The 5th of November. I mean, it helps that it scans as well, but that's irrelevant maybe. Yeah.
And just as you were saying that, I was thinking, because I was going to say, to add to that, the person that said remember. The key to the coronavirus puzzle was Boris Johnson. Was Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson actually comes to 158, which comes to remember. Yeah. So there's a lot. There's this. When you peer into the kaleidoscope, Richard, it's just genius, and it's off-world. And it's like when I realized this early on, I was like, you can't plan this. This is not me and you and some others writing in the back of men with weights and measures,
you couldn't plan it, could you? I mean,
you can't. You can't. The only answer is it's something above. It's something on a far different. And the thing is, if you're in if we're in a 3D matrix, a 3D reality right now, if you're in the fourth dimension, higher dimension, then you're going to see everything.
Yes.
You can do it. You can see and do everything. And I believe that the ones doing this are at least on the fourth, if not the fifth dimension. And that's why these things happen. And that's why there's so many twists and turns. But then you look back and it makes sense. But I've seen thousands of examples of it over the last 3.5 years that I'm like, there's something beyond that's doing this. It's not just,
it's not men.
It's not just man, in the corner, like planning and articulate.
Or a
planning.
Quantum computer somewhere trying to.
Well, that's it. If it's a quantum computer, then that's when you're in another dimension. That's something beyond, isn't it? That's something beyond that we've been used to. But it's definitely not just precision planning, because precision planning goes 3D mortal precision planning goes so far, and this is way beyond.
Yes.
It's way beyond.
So go back, if you wouldn't. You mentioned Q, and I know that I was speaking to Gavin, who was telling me about Q, and I'd heard about Q and QAnon and these drops and and things like that. And of course, as soon as you mention that on these things, and as I often say, I'm the baby of the party. I'm only coming to this, but you know, I'm learning rapidly as if I'm just a piece of blotting paper, sucking it all up. And people talk about that. Instantly, you've got your fors and againsts. There's those that say, oh, it's a complete and utter psyop. If you're waiting for the cavalry to come over the thing, then it's no good. Why didn't Trump do this or that, or reveal what's in the vaccine, or tell this, that, and the other? And why did he do certain things when, if he's on our side? And so you've got those people, and then you've got the others that are going, no, there's the hidden messages. He's trying to tell you something, and all of that. It can be quite confusing. So, what's your interpretation of this Q?
Yeah, well, and in regards to Trump, so how do I put this? I got told early on from higher up that Donald Trump is the savior of the world. That's what I got told. Are you still there, Richard?
Yeah, I'm still there. Sorry. Okay. I cut to me because I was just dabbing my eye.
Oh, okay.
I cut to you, rather.
So I got told that early on through this same stream of consciousness of the numbers. I understood that very early on. I understood it as soon as he actually put us into the global lockdown with the flight bans. I was actually supposed to go to overseas that week when it happened. I was supposed to go on the 13th, and the lockdown, I think the flight ban happened on the 11th of March. And I could have got angry at him, but I remember him speaking to the world, and he got a little choked for half a second during it. And I've always liked him. I've always liked the Trumps. I've met Ivanka before. I've met Eric since. But I wasn't following US politics. I knew he was getting heat, but I wasn't following it. I didn't, and the Q drops have been going on since 2017. I didn't know what they were because I wasn't following. I just knew it was hassle. But then the big one, the coronavirus, came in. I was like, what's this, But I remember him speaking, and something came over, and I just knew instantly I can trust what he's saying, and that's never left me. I've always known that. And so even if you do the numbers on Donald Trump 138, the savior 138, it comes, and people go, oh, that's blasphemous. How can you say that? And it's like, well, he comes from a line of Christ. His family, his dad's name was Frederick Christ Trump. His grandmother's name was Mary Christ. His grandfather's name was Felipe Christ. It would be too obvious to put on the tin Donald John Christ Trump. That'd be too much for them, That'd be too much. Yeah. But it's like, and I'm not even saying from a religious point of view, but what I'm saying is Donald Trump is amazing, and I instantly knew that. And so it wasn't me figuring out, researching in the shed, trying to work all the stuff out. It was something else came to me and just told me, and that's never left me. And he's named me in his addresses. I did my second video with Charlie Ward, and he said, great job, Numbers. And back then Jack Kidd gave me the name Numbers. And then he meant, Donald Trump said, great job, Numbers. And then he went, as in the economy. So he did his thing, and then he clarified it for the general message. I was like, what? And it hit me. It's like, I just came out. I did a video a couple months before on my own, and then I went on Charlie's show, and that was a lot bigger. And there's the second one I did with him, and he went, great job, Numbers. I was like, he just confirmed, he just talked to me. And then he mentioned my grandmother's name in the same minute. He only did a 2-minute clip, and her name's Eileen Wood. And he said, I would. And he said it on 43 seconds. And she lived in number 43 most of her life with my granddad. And I was like, okay, you've got my I knew something's going on. And that's how this is why I do what I do, because I know. So it's not learned out of books. No one taught me it, but I did get taught it from somewhere else. And that's why. And I got it the other day with Trump. I know bang on that November 5th is, just watch, And so what was your question?
November 5th next year.
Yeah, the election day. That's been calling election made sure. What's that about? That's a scriptural phrase, calling an election made sure. that comes to 246, and that comes to yes, the 5th of November. You know, Malachi 310, 310 is the 310th day of the year. Next year is November 5th, and it's on a leap year. And just as I said it, the screen moved again. So 310 is Malachi 310. The quantum financial system comes to 310. You know, all of this stuff that we've been hoping for, just watch. President Trump said the final battle is 2024. We thought it'd be earlier. I thought Corona was going to be over in 3 weeks, because I got I got the answers straight away. I was like, why can't anyone else see it? I didn't realize, I underestimated how much needed to go through people's consciousness to get to that level. But nevertheless, we're still here, you know, and it's like, you just watch. Next year, the election, just watch.
Mm. So
And
what do you think will happen?
drop.
Yeah.
Sorry, Richard.
No, go on.
So the Q drop. So I discovered that as I was going on, but I first of all discovered 9 plus 8, Diana's funeral. 908 is, and that's the time the funeral started, which is recorded. That's a weird number. It's a weird start time. 9 plus 8, 17. And then a day or so later, I was like, what's 17? Oh, 17th letter, what's that? And I had to count it out on my fingers and double check. I was like, oh, that's Q. Okay, Q. And then I look up JFK, and I thought it was JFK Jr. And I look up Arlington Cemetery, and you can see clearly that's a huge Q. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And then all the dots started to connect. And then I found out about the Q post a few weeks later. And then I thought, oh, Q drops, Q-tips. These are Q-tips. And then Trump does that famous post, and he holds up the Q-tips. Q-tips are cotton buds in America. I've always known that brand name, but we don't have it here in England.
No,
and he
but
holds
I know
up
that.
Q-tip. Yeah. He did it literally 2 or 3 days after I realized what Q drops were. I'm like, Q-tips, and he did it. And then he traced back to what Ukraine is with the trident thing. So everything's multi-layered, and this is a beautiful, elegant, super exciting revelation of reality. And
so when I first started hearing Q, and tell me if this works, I immediately thought of Q in James Bond.
There you go.
Who is the quartermaster who is handing out the gadgets that Bond can use.
Exactly.
And that was written in the 50s?
Yeah, you've got it. That's exactly it. Q, he's there. What's the advert on the TV right now? Mr. Q. It's everywhere.
It's And
you're seeing the number 17 so many times in the newspaper or on headlines, 1.7 or 17. You spell the word 17, it comes to 109. 109 comes to Diana Spencer. And it was her or her essence telling me, and she's not dead, by the way, but anyway, she's in witness protection.
There we are. We've now just been cancelled on YouTube.
Oh, I've said it before, that one.
Oh, that's all right.
Okay.
I'm joking.
You can cut it out. But I've mentioned that plenty of times. But witness is 109. Diana Spencer, 109. What did she witness? 109 is my channel, Psych Club, that I created the name for in October 2019. I created it for something else. But then when I was like 2 months of all this with Corona and numbers going on, I was like, I've got to say something. So I did. And I just used the existing channel. And then I work out later, a few months later, Psych Club, 109, 17, 109, of course. So everything was all preordained and foreordained before, and then you just follow, and that's why you've got to where you are. You've woken up, you've hatched, you're like here, Yeah.
No, it's been incredible. Let me ask you this then. The 23rd letter of the alphabet is?
23 is W.
Oh. What's the 24th then?
X.
See, I was rubbish at working it out. We see X a lot at the moment. Twitter has changed to X.
Do you know why that's changed, Richard?
Well, I have a suspicion that it's to do with the other side.
Maybe. I mean, there's many narratives, but one of the reasons that Twitter. So if you spell the word Twitter in numbers, T is 20, W is 23, I is 9, T is 20, T is 20, E is 5, R is 18. Twitter comes to 115. 115. And I've said it earlier, 11/5, November 5th. And then it went from Twitter, now it's become X. X is 24. It's another marker on election 24, 11/5/24. That's one of the reasons that's been done. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. There's other reasons, but that's one of the reasons that that's been done.
And we see it, I mean, there's somebody was pointing out there's a lot of X's, and I've seen them now, you know, once again, you become aware of them. And it's been said that, you know, it's the mark of the beast or something like that. Now, I don't really understand all of this. And I don't, a lot of the time, I don't want to sort of get to a point where I'm scaring myself or confusing myself.
Yeah.
But people do make that connection that X marks the spot. And
well, X does mark the spot. X is vital. X marks the spot, but X is 24. We're going into the next year, 24. Things happen on leap years. So 2012 was the London Olympics, and that was when all this stuff, I mean, it's going before, but that's when they started to kind of show clearly. So there was a lot of symbolism. There's a big, huge Boris Johnson in that. It looks like AC/DC.
Yeah, Boris Johnson jumped out of
around the beds and stuff, you know. Then you've got the Grim Reaper around all the cots and everything, you know. And I remember David Icke talking about a few things, and I got this kind of dream sort of feeling like, don't go anywhere near that stadium. I thought something bad was going to happen, and I've heard other people since say, yeah, it was, and then it got stopped. So the closest I went was the bike race with Bradley Wiggins and all that lot at Box Hill. That's as far as I went to the Olympics. Then in 2016, what happened in 2016? You had Brexit. Brexit in numbers is 78. 78 is Genesis, 78 is Kennedy. So for 3 years, we kept hearing 78, 78, Kennedy, 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 because the Kennedys are key to this as well with the Trumps. Trump got in power. He was never supposed to win. That's what Hillary said. You know, that's what they all say.
Yeah.
You had all those celebrity deaths. All those celebrity deaths. Prince, George Michael. There's a lot of people, you know, just think witness protection, in my opinion. You know, George Michael dies on Christmas Day, last Christmas. You know. Carrie Fisher, who I met briefly from a distance at the Force Awakens Star Wars the year before, and she dies, and then her mother dies the day after. You know, Debbie Reynolds. It's like all these things. Prince has spoken up about stuff. David Bowie plays Tesla in the Christopher Nolan film. Then he appears as what's his name, Jack Stevens. You know, his agent. It's like all these things happened, and then also Leicester City won the Premier League out of nowhere. They nearly got relegated. Then they win it out of nowhere, which no one in their wildest dreams would have ever believed that could even be possible, let alone it happen. And then they nearly got relegated the following year again. And then we went to the next leap year, 2020, and then that was the massive one. So when we go into 2024, to use Elon Musk's phrase, it's going to be another order of magnitude. It will be another jump up. It will be 10 times bigger than what happened in 2020. But with that, also the glorious stuff as well. So for the ones that are awake and ready and fighting, we'll be sustained, and we'll get I'll probably get another whole bunch of other things on top of numbers, you know, in the next leap year.
And you can't wait, can you?
I can't wait. I'm ready. I've been ready for so long. I'm ready.
Well, it's funny because I say I mean, I keep trying to connect with something, and you know, in this last 10 months, you know, I've had all these spiritual people and all these people who're having downloads and all that, and I keep saying, well, I'm here. Hello. I'm trying my best. I'm waking myself up.
Well, you are. You're here. The thing is, you're here, Richard. That's the thing. You're here. You know, you've made that leap, and you're a vital bridge, because you're that great connector of bringing people like, well, I know something's going on, but I don't want to go to. But you've got that. You're here. You're here. So many people aren't. I mean, there's plenty of room on YouTube. There's only a small handful, really, a small teaspoon of people that are bothered to stand up and say stuff compared to the global population. So you're very welcome, and you've been massively valuable, and will continue to be so. So you'll get things. I mean, so alien ships. I've seen a lot of lights in the sky now. I didn't get that when I first in 2020. I was open to it, but that was another. And I think things like that, you've got to see them. You know, you've got to have examples. And I'm now ready to see them like real close up, but I've seen plenty up in the sky and then they blink off and then they come back on, and I've seen them move, change direction, stop, disappear. I've seen that stuff a number of times now, but that took about a year and a half into lockdown for me to get to that. And there's other things I've seen and experienced, and it's like, okay, but I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait for 2024, because it's the final battle. It's the Chronicles of Narnia, that they had the last battle, the final. But it's very similar to what President Trump says. It's the title of the book. You got The Magician's Nephew. That's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and JFK. Their numbers are the same. Honestly, mate, we're going into something just mind-bogglingly brilliant.
We're coming up to the end of my hour, which is usually 60 minutes, which I suppose is 6, for whatever reason that means. And that's got an X in it. But anyway.
It has got an X. Well, 6 is 52. Earth, heart, ship,
There you go.
It's a 369. Tesla said if you knew the power of 369, you'd have a key to the universe.
369.
369 is time travel, witness protection. 369 is John Kennedy John Kennedy witness protection. And Kennedy died, quote, quote, on November 22nd, 1963. 63 plus Friday, 63 is 126. 126 is John Connor, Sarah Connor. And they're the time travelers in the Terminator. Terminator is 133, simulation, government. You've got all this going on. But then, the day after, Doctor Who came out. I've got Mark Atwood to thank me for this, telling me about Doctor Who. But Doctor Who came out, and because of the events of Kennedy, it basically, got no airtime because everyone else was all concerned with what happened, quite rightly, with JFK. So Doctor Who's all about time travel.
Yes.
The disclosure from, Jerry Roddenberry for Star Trek. Star Trek's the same symbol as Space Force. President Trump introduced Space Force. What's that about? He's telling us there's something more and beyond. But then if you do Saturday, which is the day after Saturday, November 22nd in numbers, that comes to 369. 369, the Tesla numbers, which is John Kennedy, witness protection, 369. Time travel, witness protection, 369.
You're incredible, aren't you? You're absolutely incredible with all of this. I could just sit and listen to you do this. We've got to draw this to an end. Yeah. You'll have to come back.
We'll do other ones. We'll do other ones, Richard, for sure.
We'll do other ones. Yeah, you must. You must come back, because I'm sure that there are people who've gone absolutely see what you're getting at. Some people going, I can see there's something there, but I don't quite grasp it.
Yeah.
And there's those that will be going, no, this is all very, this Vobes having another of these weird guests that I don't quite get. But if that is you, come back again, because the more you see all of this, the more you are open to these things, and then you'll be with us on November the 5th, it seems.
That's it.
That's it.
Well, it's coming, man. Everything's coming. You watch. Everything's coming.
Everything's coming. There we go.
Everything's coming. Yeah, everything is coming. Remember, the 5th of November is 355 in numbers, which comes to Westminster Parliament Square, 355. And where was the gunpowder plot? Right there at Westminster.
Yeah.
Houses of Parliament, 217. Lady Diana Frances Spencer, 217. And where was she? Her funeral, supposedly, over across the way, 200, Westminster Abbey. Westminster Abbey, 200 is Mount Rushmore. Who's going to pop up there on that day? And guess, talking of Q, there's an Abraham Lincoln statue opposite Houses of Parliament on Parliament Square. Abraham Lincoln, 123. Silver plus gold, 123. Eric Trump, 123. And the number or the letter of the bus stop, have a guess, Richard, what letter it is.
Is it Q?
It's Q! It's Q!
Q
it's right
here.
there! It's Q.
Here.
It's Q. Hell. And Q plus 120. So Abraham Lincoln, 123 plus Q, 17, comes to 140, comes to The Apprentice, the Trumps, the military, the quantum, the currency. Tom Numbers, 140.
Tom.
And the 88 bus comes round. The 88 is and it comes round.
Where do people?
It pulls up in front of the bus stop.
Where do people find your excellent podcast?
Psych Club here.
Psych
Club. Tom Numbers
PSY.
on YouTube.
Tom
So I'm on
Numbers.
YouTube, I'm on Locals, I'm on Rumble, but my main one, about 85,000 on YouTube. Psych Club, Tom Numbers, just type it in and
Yeah.
you'll find me.
I'll put
You'll
the
probably
link
put
in
a
the
link
description.
up, yeah.
Yeah, I know, but it's...
Yeah.
Tom, thank you so much. That has been mind-boggling and brilliant at the same time, as I knew it would be. And do check out that, because you interviewed me. Although we did talk about a hell of a lot of numbers in that one too, which is brilliant.
We did.
It's all cool stuff. So there we are. Do go and check Tom's podcast. I'll be back with more of my stuff. But for the moment, thank you so much for watching. And thank you, Tom. It's been absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'll be back, as I say. Until next time, from Tom and I, goodbye.